Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For your delectation tonight, we will be starting the stream with a small perambulation through the nation of the most glaciacious of indignations. What's up? Happy Easter to you too, Alison. I guess a couple of people are going to be expecting me to be late, and here I am, actually on time for once. How's the connection, by the way? Last time we was here was a little problematic, if I remember. Early Easter. Or maybe so, it's Easter Sunday. Good evening, Ziggy Wiggy Stardust. Good evening, Barbarian. You still need to get used to the shaved chin. So do I. Takes a bit of getting used to. It's quite funny. I'll look in the mirror still and go, oh, it's gone. Okay. Hey, Sana. Dobry večer, Biblina. Yeah, I know. I got it plugged in on the LAN cable. It seems to be the only way to do it with my clunky old lappy. Hello, Kei Kako. Good evening. Eva Strong, FCK. Hello. I hope acting a corpse was exciting. It was cold. It was a lot of fun. We had a giggle, myself and the actress. Yeah, no, it was fine. It's going to be a silly little thing, but fun all the same. Excuse me for yawning already. I've got a lot to eat today. Family had us round, had some food, and lots of cake because I'm in the land of the Germans. What's up, Dadzig? Sugar Crash, maybe, or just all the gluten and some more. You kind of miss the mustache. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It kind of gets in the way, and drinking is just a pain in the ass. We'll see. I might grow a little tash back for Rat Eye. Might that be the plan, but 2 drinks tonight. A little bit of Paulana, Münchener Hell, and a mint tea. What kind of food? 2 types of goulash, if you will. One was a beef goulash with plums, and the other one was a wild boar goulash with carrots, and then there was mashed potato and like noodles and salad and roast vegetables. Pray for the stash, for it has risen, or rather, it's gone in the bin. Cool. Hello, Monster Heart. Yeah, well, enjoy your Easter with the fam too. Exactly, Rumi. It was a lot of familial Easter vibe going on. Should we do a Tash prayer stash prayer circle? We could maybe, I don't know, hold little fingers like this in a circle, and then say, "Oh, we wish you a good rise." Oh, hey, thanks, Wadey. Appreciate that. Hey, yours? Hang on. You're just popping in for a bit before eating birthday ice cream. Is it your birthday? Wow, herzlichen Grüß zum Geburtstag. Alles Gute, das wünsche ich dir im neuen Jahr. Proper Easter food, Coma. That's it. You got it, Bublina. So, that's nice. Coincides with Easter this year. Yeah. What else you got going on? Was there a party this weekend? Did you party Friday, Saturday, Wadey? Did you get it on down on the dance floor? Got to sacrifice a goat to eat it. Oh my god, goat curry. How good would that be? Oh yeah. Hey Kermit 985. Dear Lord, please lay your blessings on Michael's face so he may grow a cheeky wee mustache before the right eye event. Amen. I feel the Lord. I shouldn't do that. Making fun of the southern pastors. I was cooking for you, QAQ. Quack, quack, quack. Yeah, exactly. A few more happy birthdays sent that way. We'll see. When is Rat Eye again? June? Oh yeah, it doesn't take me that long to grow, Tash. We're in a hype train already. You guys, stop it. Richie Crispy, thank you very much. Enjoying that. Mm. We shall party next weekend. Prague is waiting for us. Hang on a second. You coming to Prague next weekend? What's going on? No, I can't answer that now. Sorry, Richard. Actually, do you know who's? That's funny. The person ringing me is the face of Mark Vark von Owlitz, who was Mark Vark von Owlitz in the first one, ACD1. Richard Zeman. I'm streaming on Twitch, good sir. Can't talk now. Isn't that funny? Plane tickets. Oh dear. Esther, hi. Hello, good evening. Where were we? I was catching up here. June 13th, got plane tickets. Just went for dinner with Ma and Grandma, but today was great nonetheless. Yeah, well, when next time you're in Prague, we'll have a little party, eh? They are so fucking expensive plane tickets, and probably likely to just get more expensive. Dashy live. It's yeah, well, you know, we have after a little it's okay. Is that approving? I'm not really sure myself. Up train. Okay, Kaku, you'll be there in spirit. That's good. How is it that your name is used with another animal? You got Michael Horse, you got not Michael Snake. Well, who's doing Michael Snake now? I'm a bit confused. I was born in the year of the snake, though. You can do the maths now, guys. What's going to be next? I don't know. Michael Kangaroo, Michael Wombat. Oh, those are all Australian. Hey, Sazzle Shanks. Michael Seal, exactly. Logan named one of the snakes after you. Of course he did. Yeah, I forgot about that. You're also Year of the Snake. Okay, all the snakes together. Michael Porcupiney, Michael Butterfly, Michael Beaver. That's what she said. Michael Owl would be cool. Okay, Monster Heart, have a good one. And enjoy your Easter Sunday. Oh dear. And sit up a bit more upright. I could probably do with another box or something to put under this other box that I've got. Let me see if I can find something. A massive book in the background probably would help, wouldn't it? There we go. There's another very appropriate box for raising at the height of my laptop. Jewelry rigged all the way. It's not a self-tape. Yeah, okay. Still, I'm like, yeah, that's a more appreciable angle. Because if I sit back now, yeah, you still got me. There you go. Although now, oh my god, I should have just left it. 10 out of 10 for the hoots. Michael Owl is legendary. Thanks to Dashi. Ziggy Week Stylus, thank you very much. Look at that. Kikaku! I really appreciate that, innit? Like, I really appreciate it. My tech support give me jip, not in the room. Okay, maybe it was better before. Should I put it back down? Bianco 1403. This is better. Okay. It's okay. You're beautiful. Well, thank you, girl. Oh my God, bigging me up. I love that. Although I'm blocking a little bit of light coming from behind now, aren't I? Mm. Leave it like it is. Stop messing around. God, oh, goodness me. All right. Uh, Up train level 2. I keep forgetting. Is it? It's not for me the emotes now, is it? I can't unlock. Can I? Oh, batter up. That one. Can I do that? I can't do that, can I? It's not for me to unlock. Oh my God, Alison, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Appreciate it. Goodness. Ching ching. Easter subs. Grazie mille. All right. My plan this evening is I don't want to read too long because it's Easter Sunday, and I've got more cake to eat probably. Thank you, Barbarian, picking me up with your bling 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 bling. I have. I'm in Germany. Is there cake? Is there cake in Germany? This is not even. I just made I came to an awareness today that the word for kitchen in German is Küche, and the word for cook is Koch, and the word for cake is Kuchen. So it's like you can't separate the word cake from. Do you know what I mean? It's so close. It's not. Yeah. What do you mean no more cake? Have we read The Premature Burial? I don't think it's super long. No, I'm not sure we have. Hello, Jazabian. You got to have coffee and cake. But what I was thinking to do, hang on, The Burial. Did we read The Burial? Now I'm not sure if we didn't. If I can find the bloody thing. Four beats by the little Frenchman. What the his hand in a sling. Oh, that was the Irish one, wasn't it? We definitely read that one. I don't know where it is now, Alison. No, that's it. I think we have read it. We still have the bells. The bell. Hang on. The bells is a poem, yes. But I think we read that. The premature burial we did read, yes. So what I wanted to do, I've been through the list, and I would like to read the 1002nd tale of Scheherazade. The one stream I missed. I know. I know this is a problem. Yeah, and then we're going to read the assignation, and then I don't know what. But hey, let's start with a poem. And the bells is a poem, is it not? Yes. Oh, hang on. Have we read the bells? We read Ulalume. Maybe we have not read the bells. 954. 954. 954. Hi, train. Oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you. Look at those. So who gets to do these emotes now? Is it me or not? I'm so bloody confused. Unlockable emotes. Oh. Personal best. Looks like Mango, the personal best one. can't unlock shit, can I? I don't know how this works. Chat gets the emotes. Okay, fine. I've never been a Twitch streamer. Twitch. 9 what? 954. We have read the bells though. But do we want to hear the bells again? Alas, I mean, I think we read that as well. Oh, it's difficult. I didn't keep track very well, did I? We read the bells. The Conqueror Worm, I'm pretty sure we read that. I tell you what, let's go. Why don't we dive into his youth? Let me read some poems from the youth and start at the very back. Hype train successful. Oh, Jesus, this is a long one. To Isadora. Ja, ich bin in Deutschland, du. You unlocked one from NASA when I watched Artemis stream. Monsieur! Hey, Forty! What did I miss? Not a lot. I'm just chatting, trying to work out what to read. Oh, we wrote stuff in Greek as well. Shut up. All right, he studied the classics, didn't he? What's going on here? What? He's still a stinky bread. How's my Greek? Yeah, let's leave it there. We're going to read a poem called Imitation. A dark, unfathomed tide of interminable pride, a mystery and a dream, should my early life seem. I say that dream was fraught with a wild and waking thought of beings that have been, which my spirit hath not seen, had I let them pass me by with a dreaming eye. Let none of the earth inherit that vision on my spirit, those thoughts I would control as I spell upon his soul. For that bright hope at last, and that light time have passed, and my worldly rest hath gone, with a sigh as it passed on. I care not though it perish with a thought I then did cherish. Smoke inhalation? What the hell happened? Barafukus. They have a 24/7 stream on another. Is this? Oh, we're talking about the thing. Cooking accident that landed me in the hospital. You had an accident? What did you do? Did you set something on fire? Holy shit. Pocket spices. You should. That's not funny. I don't know why I laughed. Mark's pocket spices. Um, we'll read a dream, and then we're gonna bang into one of these stories. You put a spice on a dry pan. The pan was already hot, I'm guessing, and it was yeah. You gotta be careful not to burn those up. Mm-mm-mm. Read your dreams. If only I could remember mine. Sleep like a log. In visions of the dark night I have dreamed of joy departed, but a waking dream of life and light hath left me broken hearted. And what is not a dream by day to him whose eyes are cast on things around him with a ray turned back upon the past? That holy dream, while all the world were chiding, hath cheered me as a lovely beam, a lonely spirit guiding. What though that light through storm and night so trembled from afar? What could there be more purely bright in truth's day star? Yeah, cooking accidents will happen. Um, One has to be careful, vigilant at all times. That you can gravely injure yourself making potatoes. Yeah, well, cooking is the kitchen actually is in the UK is the third most dangerous workplace in Britain. It is kind of an extreme sport. Okay, what we're going to go to the 1002nd story of Scheherazade, and then we're going to move on. What other options that came up? Pop them in, and maybe Sally, you could pin them if someone suggests. Oh, 1001 Nights. That would be pretty cool to read, wouldn't it? Interesting. I've not given them a go before, to be fair. The 1002nd tale of Scheherazade. Truth is stranger than fiction. Old saying. Having had occasion lately in the course of some Oriental investigations to consult the Telemanau Isit Urunot, a work which, like the Sohar by Simeon Ochaides, was scarcely known at all, even in Europe, and which has never been quoted to my knowledge by any American, if we accept perhaps the author of the Curiosities of American Literature. Having had occasion, I say, to turn over some pages of the first mentioned very remarkable work, I was not a little astonished to discover that the literary world has hitherto been strangely in error respecting the fate of the vizier's daughter, Scheherazade, as that fate is depicted in the Arabian Nights, and that the denouement there given, if not altogether inaccurate as far as it goes, was at least to blame in not having gone very much further. For full information on this interesting topic, I must refer the inquisitive reader to the Isitstereonaut itself, but in the meantime I shall be pardoned for giving a summary of what I there discovered. It will be remembered that in the usual version of the tales, a certain monarch, having good cause to be jealous of his queen, not only puts her to death, but makes a vow by his beard and the prophet to espouse each night the most beautiful maiden in his dominions, and the next morning to deliver her up to the executioner. Having fulfilled this vow for many years to the letter, and with a religious punctuality and method that conferred great credit upon him as a man of devout feeling and excellent sense, he was interrupted one afternoon, no doubt at his prayers, by a visitor from his grand vizier, to whose daughter, it appears, there had occurred an idea. Her name was Scheherazade, and her idea was that she would either redeem the land from the depopulation tax upon its beauty, or perish for the approved fashion of all heroines in the attempt. Accordingly, and although we do not know it to be a leap year, which makes the sacrifice more meritorious, she deputes her father, the Grand Vizier, to make an offer to the king of her hand. This hand the king eagerly accepts. He had intended to take it at all events, and had put off the matter from day to day only through fear of the vizier. But in accepting it now, he gives all parties very distinctly to understand that, the Grand Vizier or no Grand Vizier, he has not the slightest design of giving up one iota of his vow or of his privileges. When, therefore, the fair Scheherazade, insists upon marrying the king and did actually marry him despite her father's excellent advice not to do a thing of the kind, when she would and did marry him, I say, willy nilly, it was with her beautiful black eyes as thoroughly open as the nature of the case would allow. It seems, however, that this politic damsel, who had been reading Machiavelli, beyond doubt, had a very ingenious little plot in her mind. On the night of the wedding, she contrived, upon I forget what specious pretence, to have her sister occupy a couch sufficiently near that of the royal pair to admit of easy conversation from bed to bed, and a little before cock crowing, she took care to awaken the good monarch, her husband, who bore her none the worse will because he intended to wring her neck on the morrow. She managed to awaken him, I say, although on account of a capital conscience and an easy digestion he slept well, by the profound interest of a story about a rat and a black cat, I think, which she was narrating, all in an undertone, of course, to her sister. When the day broke, it so happened that this history was not altogether finished, and that Scheherazade, in the nature of things, could not finish it just then, since it was high time for her to get up and be bowstrung, a thing very little pleasant than hanging, only a trifle more genteel. The king's curiosity, however, prevailing, I am sorry to say, even over his sound religious principles, induced him for this once to postpone the fulfilment of his vow until next morning, for the purpose, and with the hope of hearing that night how it fared in the end with the black cat I think it was, and the rat. The night having arrived, however, the Lady Scheherazade not only put the finishing stroke to the black cat and the rat was blue, but before she well knew what she was about, she found herself deep in the intricacies of a narration, having reference, if I'm not altogether mistaken, to a pink horse with green wings that went, in a violent manner, by clockwork, and was wound up with an indigo key. With this history, the king was even more profoundly interested than the other, and as the day broke before its conclusion, notwithstanding all the queen's endeavours to get through it in time for the bowstringing, there was again no resource but to postpone that ceremony as before for 24 hours. The next night there happened a similar accident with a similar result, and then the next, and then again the next, so that in the end the good monarch, having been unavoidably deprived of all opportunity to keep his vow during a period of no less than 1001 nights, either forgets it altogether by the expiration of this time, or he gets himself absolved of it in a regular way, or what is more probable, breaks it outright, as well as the head of his father confessor. At all events, Scheherazade, who, being lineally descended from Eve, fell heir, perhaps, to the whole 7 baskets of talk, which the latter lady, we all know, picked up from under the trees in the Garden of Eden. Scheherazade, I say, finally triumphed, and the tariff upon beauty was repealed. Now, this conclusion, which is that of the stories we have it upon record, is no doubt excessively proper and pleasant, but alas, like a great many pleasant things, is more pleasant than true, and I am indebted altogether to the Isiturnot for the means of correcting the error. Le mieux, says a French proverb, est l'ennemi de bien. And in mentioning that Scheherazade had inherited the 7 baskets of talk, I should have added that she put them out at compound interest until they amounted to 77. My dear sister, said she on the 1002nd night, I quote the language of the Itzit Urnut at this point verbatim. My dear sister, she said, now that all this little difficulty about the bowstring has blown over, and that this odious tax is so happily repealed, I feel that I have been guilty of this great indiscretion in withholding you from you and the king, who I'm sorry to say snores, a thing no gentleman would do, the full conclusion of Simbad the sailor. This person went through numerous other and more interesting adventures than those which I related, but the truth is I felt sleepy on the particular night of their narration, and so was seduced into cutting them short. A great grievous piece of misconduct, for which I only trust that Allah will forgive me. But even yet it is not too late to remedy my great neglect, and as soon as I have given the king a pinch or two in order to wake him up so far that he may stop making that horrible noise, I will forthwith entertain you and him, if he pleases, with the sequel of this very remarkable story. Hereupon the sister of Scheherazade, as I have it from the Is It or Not, Is It or Not, I finally got the joke there. Is it or not, expressed no very particular intensity of gratification, but the king, having been sufficiently pinched, at length ceased snoring, and finally said, and then who, when the queen, understanding these words, which are no doubt Arabic, to signify that he was all attention, and would do his best not to snore any more. The queen, I say, having arranged these matters to her satisfaction, re-entered thus at once into the history of Sinbad the sailor. At length in my old age, these are the words of Sinbad himself, as retailed by Scheherazade. At length in my old age, and after enjoying many years of tranquillity at home, I became once more possessed of a desire of visiting foreign countries, and one day, without acquainting my family with my design, I packed up some bundles of such merchandise as was most precious and less bulky, and engaging a porter to carry them, went with him down to the seashore to wait the arrival of any chance vessel that might convey me out of the kingdom into some region which I had not as yet explored. Having deposited the packages upon the sands, we sat down beneath some trees and looked out into the ocean in the hope of perceiving a ship, but during several hours we saw none whatever. At length I fancied that I could hear a singular buzzing or humming sound, and the porter, after listening a while, declared that he could also distinguish it. Presently it grew louder, and then still louder, so that we could have no doubt that the object which caused it was approaching us. At length, on the edge of the horizon, we discovered a black speck, which was rapidly increasing in size until we made it out to be a vast monster swimming with a great part of its body above the surface of the water. It came toward us with inconceivable swiftness, throwing up huge waves of foam around its breast and illuminating all that part of the sea through which it passed with a long line of fire that extended far off into the distance. As the thing drew near, we saw it very distinctly. Its length was equal to that of three of the loftiest trees that grow, and it was as wide as the great hall of audience in your palace, O most sublime and munificent of the caliphs. Its body, which was unlike that ordinary fish's, was as solid as rock, and of a jetty blackness throughout all that portion of it which floated above the water, with the exception of a narrow blood-red streak that completely begirdled it. The belly, which floated beneath the surface, and of which we could only glimpse now and then as the monster rose and fell with the billows, was entirely covered with metallic scales of a colour like that of a moon in misty weather. The back was flat and nearly white, and from there it extended upwards of 6 spines, about half the length of the whole body. This horrible creature had no mouth that we could perceive, but, as if to make up for this deficiency, it was provided with at least 4 score of eyes that protruded from their sockets, like those of the green dragonfly, and were arranged all around the body in 2 rows, one above the other, and parallel to the blood-red streak, which seemed to answer the purpose of an eyebrow. 2 or 3 of these dreadful eyes were much larger than the others, and had the appearance of solid gold. Although this beast approached us, as I have said before, with the greatest rapidity, it must have been moved altogether by necromancy, for it had neither fins like a fish, nor webbed feet like a duck, nor wings like the sea-shell which is blown along in the manner of a vessel. Not yet did it writhe itself forward as do the eels. Its head and its tail were shaped precisely alike, only not far from the latter were 2 small holes that served for nostrils, and through which the monster puffed out its thick breath with prodigious violence and with a shrieking, disagreeable noise. Our terror at beholding this hideous thing was very great, but it was even surpassed by our astonishment when, upon getting a nearer look, we perceived upon the creature's back a vast number of animals about the size and shape of men, and altogether much resembling them, except that they wore no garments, as men do, being supplied, by nature no doubt, with an ugly, uncomfortable covering, a good deal like cloth, but fitting so tight to the skin as to render the poor wretches laughably awkward, and put them apparently to severe pain. On the very tips of their heads were certain square-looking boxes, which at first sight I thought might have been intended to answer as turbans, but I soon discovered that they were excessively heavy and solid, and therefore concluded they were contrivances designed by their great weight to keep the heads of the animals steady and safe upon their shoulders. Around the necks of the creatures were fastened black collars, badges of servitude, no doubt, such as we keep on our dogs, only much wider and infinitely stiffer, so that it was quite impossible for these poor victims to move their heads in any direction without moving the body at the same time, and thus they were doomed to perpetual contemplation of their noses, a view puggish and snubby in a wonderful, if not positively in an awful degree. When the monster had nearly reached the shore where we stood, it suddenly pushed out one of its eyes to a great extent, and emitted from it a terrible flash of fire, accompanied by a dense cloud of smoke, and a noise that I can compare to nothing but thunder. As the smoke cleared away, we saw one of the odd man animals standing near the head of the large beast with a trumpet in his hand, through which, putting it to his mouth, he presently addressed us in a loud, harsh, and disagreeable accents that perhaps we should have mistaken for language had they not come altogether through the nose. Being thus evidently spoken to, I was at a loss how to reply, as I could in no manner understand what was said, and in this difficulty I turned to the porter, who was near swooning through affright, and demanded of him his opinion as to what species of monster it was, and what it wanted, and what kind of creature those were that swarmed upon its back. To this the porter replied, as well as he could for trepidation, that he had once before heard of this sea beast, that it was a cruel demon with bowels of sulphur and a blood of fire, created by an evil genie as the means of inflicting misery upon mankind. The things upon its back were vermin, such as sometimes infest cats and dogs, only a little larger and more savage, and that the very vermin had their uses, however evil, for through the torture they caused the beast by their nibblings and stingings, it was goaded into that degree of wrath which was requisite to make it roar and commit ill, and so fulfill the vengeful and malicious designs of the wicked genie. This account determined me to take my heels, and without once even looking at me, I ran at full speed up into the hills, while the porter ran equally fast, although nearly in an opposite direction, so that, by these means, he finally made his escape with my bundles, of which I have no doubt he took excellent care, although this is a point I cannot determine, as I do not remember that I ever beheld him again. For myself, I was so hotly pursued by a swarm of the men vermin, who had come to the shore in boats, that I was very soon overtaken, both hand and foot, and conveyed to the beast, which immediately swam out again in the middle of the sea. I now bitterly repented my folly in quitting a comfortable home to peril in my life in such adventures as this. But, regret being useless, I made the best of my condition, and exerted myself to secure the goodwill of the man animal that owned the trumpet, and appeared to exercise authority over these fellows. I succeeded so well in this endeavour that, in a few days, the creature bestowed upon me various tokens of his favour, and in the end even went to the trouble of teaching me the rudiments of what it was vain enough to denominate its language, so that at length I was enabled to converse with it readily, and came to make it comprehend the ardent desire I had of seeing the world. Washish squashish squeak, Simbad, hey diddly diddly grunt und grumble hiss hiss fiss, said he to me one day after dinner, but I beg 1,000 pardons, I'd forgotten that your majesty is not conversant with the dialect of the cockneys, so the man animals were called. I presumed their language formed the connecting link between that of the horse and that of the rooster, cockneys. With your permission, I will translate. Washish squashish, and so forth. That is to say, I am happy to find, my dear Sinbad, that you are really a very excellent fellow. We are now about doing a thing which is called circumnavigating the globe, and since you are so desirous of seeing the world, I will strain a point and give you a free passage upon the back of the beast. When the lady Scheherazade had proceeded thus far, relates the is it or not, the king turned over from his left side to his right, and said, "It is in fact very surprising, my dear Queen, that you omitted hitherto these latter adventures of Sinbad. You know I think them exceedingly entertaining and strange." The king having thus expressed himself, we are told, the fair Scheherazade resumed her history in the following words. Sinbad went on in this manner with his narrative. I thanked the man animal for its kindness, and soon found myself very much at home on the beast, which swam at a prodigious rate through the ocean, although the surface of the latter is, in that part of the world, by no means flat, but round like a pomegranate, so that we went, so to say, either uphill or downhill at the same time. That, I think, was very singular, interrupted the king. Oh, do we have some shock about the shaving? Nevertheless, it is quite true, replied Scheherazade. I have my doubts, rejoined the king, but pray be so good as to go on with the story. I will, said the queen. The beast, continued Sinbad, swam as I have related uphill and downhill until at length we arrived at an island many of 100 miles in circumference, but which nevertheless had been built in the middle of the sea by a colony of little things like caterpillars. Said the king. Leaving this island, said Sinbad, for Scheherazade, it must be understood, took no notice of her husband's ill-mannered ejaculation. Leaving this island, we came to another where the forests were of solid stone, and so hard that they shivered to pieces the finest tempered axes with which we endeavoured to cut them down. Hm, said the king again. But Scheherazade, paying him no attention, continued in the language of Sinbad. Passing beyond this last island, we reached a country where there was a cave that ran to the distance of 30 or 40 miles within the bowels of the earth, and that contained a great number of far more spacious and more magnificent palaces than to be found in all Damascus and Baghdad. From the roofs of these palaces were hung myriad of gems, like diamonds, but larger than men, and in among the streets of towers and pyramids and temples there flowed immense rivers as black as ebony, and swarming with fish that had no eyes. Said the king. And then we swam into a region of the sea where we found a lofty mountain, down whose sides there streamed torrents of melted metal, some of which were 12 miles wide and 60 miles long, while from an abyss on the summit issued so vast a quantity of ashes that the sun was entirely blotted out from the heavens, and it became darker than the darkest midnight, so that, when we were even at a distance of 150 miles from the mountain, it was impossible to see the whitest object, however close we held it to our eyes. Said the king. And, after quitting this coast, the beast continued his voyage until we met with a land in which the nature of things seemed reversed. For we here saw a great lake, at the bottom of which, more than 100 feet beneath the surface of the water, there flourished, in full leaf, a forest of tall and luxuriant trees. Ooh, said the king. Some 100 miles further on brought us to a climate where the atmosphere was so dense as to sustain iron or steel, just as our own does feather. Fiddle-dee-dee, said the king. Proceeding still in the same direction, we presently arrived at the most magnificent region in the world. Through it there meandered a glorious river for several thousand miles. The river was of unspeakable depth and of a transparency richer than that of amber. It was from 3 to 6 miles in width, and its banks, which arose on either side to 1,200 feet in perpendicular height, were crowned with ever blossoming trees, and the perpetual sweet scented flowers that made the whole territory one gorgeous garden. But the name of this luxuriant land was the kingdom of horror, and to enter it was inevitable death. Humph, said the king. We left this kingdom in great haste, and after some days came to another, where we were astonished to perceive myriads of monstrous animals with horns resembling scythes upon their heads. These hideous beasts dig for themselves past vast caverns in the soil, of a funnel shape, and line the sides of them with rocks, so disposed one upon the other that they fall instantly when trodden upon by other animals, thus precipitating them into monstrous dens, where their blood is immediately sucked, and their carcasses afterwards hurled contemptuously out at an immense distance from the caverns of death. Pooh, said the king. Continuing our progress, we perceived a district with vegetables that grew not upon soil but in air. There were others that sprang from the substance of other vegetables, others that derived their substance from the bodies of living animals, and then again there were others that glowed all over with intense fire. others that moved from place to place at pleasure. And what was still more wonderful, we discovered flowers that lived and breathed and moved their limbs at will, and had, moreover, the detestable passion of mankind for enslaving other creatures, confining them in horrid and solitary prisons until the fulfillment of appointed tasks. Phew, said the king. Quitting this land, we soon arrived at another in which the bees and the birds are mathematicians of such genius and erudition that they give daily instructions in the science of geometry to the wise men of the empire. The king of the place having offered a reward for the solution of two very difficult problems, they were solved upon the spot, the one by the bees and the other by the birds. But the king keeping their solution a secret, it was only after the most profound researches and labour and the writing of an infinity of big books during a long series of years that the men mathematicians at length arrived at the identical solutions which had been given upon the spot by the bees and the birds. Oh my, said the king. We had scarcely lost sight of this empire when we found ourselves close upon another, from whose shores there flew over our heads a flock of fowls a mile in breadth and 240 miles long, so that although they flew a mile every minute, it required no less than 4 hours for the whole flock to pass over us, in which there were several millions of fowl. Oh, fie, said the king. No sooner had we got rid of these birds, which occasioned us to great annoyance, than we were terrified by the appearance of a fowl of another kind, and infinitely larger than even the rocks which I met in my former voyages, for it was bigger than the biggest of the domes in your seraglio, O most munificent of caliphs. This terrible fowl had no head that we could perceive, but was fashioned entirely of belly, which was of a prodigious fatness and roundness, of a soft-looking substance, a smooth, shining, and striped with various colours. In its talons the monster was bearing away to its eyrie in the heavens a house from which it had knocked off the roof, and in the interior of which we distinctly saw human beings, who beyond doubt were in a state of frightful despair at the horrible fate which awaited them. We shouted with all our might in the hope of frightening the bird into letting go of its prey, but it merely gave a snort or a puff as if of rage, and then let fall upon our heads a heavy sack which proved to be filled with sand. Stuff? Said the king. It was just after this adventure that we encountered a continent of immense extent and prodigious solidity, but which nevertheless was supported entirely upon the back of a sky blue cow that had no fewer than 400 horns. That, now, I believe, said the king, because I have read something of a kind before in a book. We passed immediately beneath this continent, swimming in between the legs of the cow, and after some hours found ourselves in a wonderful country indeed, which, I was informed by the man animal, was his own native land, and inhabited by things of his own species. This elevated the man animal very much in my esteem, and in fact I now began to feel ashamed of the contemptuous familiarity with which I had treated them, for I found that the man animals in general were a nation of the most powerful magicians, who lived with worms in their brain, which no doubt served to stimulate them by their painful writhings and wrigglings to the most miraculous efforts of imagination. Nonsense, said the king. Among the magicians were domesticated several animals of very singular kinds. For example, there was a huge horse whose bones were iron and whose blood was boiling water. In place of corn, he had black stones for his usual lunch, and yet, in spite of so hard a diet, he was so strong and swift that he could drag a load more weighty than the grandest temple in the city, at a rate surpassing that of the flight of most birds. Twaddle! I saw also among those people a hen without feathers, but bigger than a camel. Instead of fish and bone, she had iron and brick, her blood like that of the horse, to whom, in fact, she was nearly related, whose boiling water, and like him, she ate nothing but wood or black stones. This hen brought forth very frequently 100 chickens in the day, and after birth they took up their residence for several weeks within the stomach of their mother. Falal, said the king. One of this nation of mighty conjurers created a man out of brass and wood and leather, and endowed him with such ingenuity that he would have beaten at chess all the race of mankind, with the exception of the great Caliph Harun al-Rashid. Another of these magi constructed, of like material, a creature that put to shame even the genius of him who made it, for so great were its reasoning powers that, in a second, it performed calculations of so vast an extent that they would have required the united labour of 50,000 fleshy men for a year. But still, a more wonderful conjurer fashioned for himself a mighty thing that was neither man nor beast, but which had brains of lead, intermixed with black matter like pitch, and fingers that employed with such incredible speed and dexterity that it would have had no trouble in writing out 20,000 copies of the Koran in an hour. And this with so exquisite a precision that in all the copies there should not be found one to vary from another by the breadth of the finest hair. This thing was of a prodigious strength, so that it erected or overthrew the mightiest empires at a breath, but its powers were exercised equally for evil and for good. Ridiculous. Among this nation of necromancers, there was also one who had in his veins the blood of the salamanders, for he had no scruple of sitting down to smoke his chibok in a red-hot oven until his dinner was thoroughly roasted upon its floor. Another had the faculty of converting the common metals into gold, without even looking at them during the process. Another had such a delicacy of touch that he made a wire so fine as to be invisible. Another made such a quickness of perception that he counted all the separate motions of an elastic body while it was springing back and forwards at the rate of 900 million times in a second. Absurd, said the king. Another of these magicians, by means of fluid that nobody ever yet saw, could make the corpses of his friends brandish their arms, kick out their legs, fight, or even get up and dance at will. Another had cultivated his voice to so great an extent that he could have made himself heard from one end of the world to the other. And another had so long an arm that he could sit down in Damascus and indite a letter at Baghdad, or indeed at any distance whatsoever. Another commanded the lightning to come down to him out of the heavens, and it came at his call, and served him for a plaything when it came. Another took two loud sounds, and out of them made silence. Another constructed a deep darkness. Where are we? Out of the two brilliant lights. Another made ice in a red-hot furnace. Another directed the sun to paint his portrait, and the sun did. Another took his luminary with the moon of the planets, and having first weighed them with scrupulous accuracy, probed into their depths and found out the solidity of the substances of which they were made. But the whole nation is indeed of so surprising a necromantic ability that not even their infants nor their commonest cats and dogs have any difficulty in seeing objects that do not exist at all, or that for 20 millions of years before the birth of the nation itself had been blotted out from the face of creation. Preposterous, said the king. The wives and daughters of these incomparably great and wise magi, continued Scheherazade, without being in any manner disturbed by these frequent, most ungentlemanly interruptions on the part of her husband, the wives and daughters of these eminent conjurers are everything that is accomplished and refined, and would be everything that is interesting and beautiful, but for an unhappy fatality that besets them, and from which not even the miraculous powers of their husbands and fathers has hitherto been adequate to save. Some fatalities come in certain shapes, and some in others, but this of which I speak has come in the shape of a crochet. A what? Said the king. A crochet, said Scheherazade. One of the evil genii, who are perpetually upon the watch to inflict ill, has put it into the heads of these accomplished ladies that the thing which we describe as a personal beauty consists altogether into the protuberance of the region which lies not very far below the small of the back. Perfection of loveliness, they say, is in the direct ratio of the extent of this lump. Having been possessed of this idea, and bolsters being cheap in that country, in the days have long gone by since it was impossible to distinguish a woman from a dromedary. Stop, said the king. I can't stand that, and I won't. You already give me a dreadful headache with your lies. The day, too, I perceive, is beginning to break. How long have we been married? My conscience is getting to be troublesome again, and that dromedary touch. Do you take me for a fool? Upon the whole, you might as well get up and be throttled. These words, as I learned from the Is It or Not, both grieved and astonished Scheherazade, but as she knew the king to be a man of scrupulous integrity and quite unlikely to forfeit his word, she submitted to her fate with a good grace. She derived, however, great consolation during the tightening of the bowstring from the reflection that much of their history remained still untold, and that the petulance of her brute husband had reaped for him a most righteous reward in depriving him of many inconceivable adventures. Well, that's bollocks, isn't it? No, bosoms. Oh, me meron pan. Um, there was one breast mentioned. That escalated quickly, as they say. I know. Rude king, dickwad. All of those things, by the way, that were mentioned, because there's footnotes to all of these things, are references to um, various things that do exist, and the kind of exaggerations, if you will. Oh dear. Oh, but it's gunshot. Danke, danke, danke. Thank you, thank you. For example, the cave that you spoke about is the Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. And then, where is it? Um, melted lava. That was Iceland, you see. And then they were talking about, various things. So that's quite interesting in that way, I guess. All right, folks. So let's read a little shorter one, and then maybe a couple of poems. But then I think we're my soul almost left. Oh, you should. That was hardly a sneeze at all. Hmm. Oh, we read the Oblong Box last time, didn't we? And the Duke d'Omelette, we read that. King Pest, did we read King Pest? We did indeed. A Devil in the Belfry, did we read that one? Got some good Hop frog, jumping frog, Albuquerque, putting the boom. Oh yeah, there's some massive caves, isn't there? It's amazing, that stuff. I've never understood the desire to explore them, but each to their own. 502. Um, I don't think we've. I carried a soup. Scary chap. What's going on? I'm just trying to work out what we're going to read. Diddling. Did we read Diddling? 367. All right, we're going to read diddling. It's silly. 3, 6. No, 3, 6, 7. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for all the subs. We just hit some sub goals or something. I don't know what that means, but we did it. So thank you so much. Dank Snack, Babush Toad, and Ziwi Stargers, Jade, and Baron, and Alison, indeedy. The hype train started there early, 53 minutes ago. Look at that Liege Lordling followed. Yeah, yes. Invading. Did you decide against the shadows on the wall going outside again? I don't mind going in a cave if it's guided and you know that there's lights and shit, but okay, this is a very silly one, and I think this is probably a good place to leave Poe, because there's so much serious stuff in Poe as well. Solar Man Cave Vlog. Yeah, not from me. Why don't you ask Luke if he'll do? Yeah, exactly, Magusa. Insane. Okay, here we go. Diddling, considered as one of the exact sciences. Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. Since the world began, there have been two Jeremies. The one wrote a Jeremiad about usury, and one was called Jeremy Bentham. He has been much admired by Mr. John Neal and was a great man in a small way. The other gave name to the most important of the exact sciences and was a great man in a great way, I may say indeed in the very greatest of ways. Diddling, or the abstract idea conveyed by the verb to diddle, is sufficiently well understood. Yet the fact, the deed, the thing, diddling, is somewhat difficult to define. We may get, however, at a tolerably distinct conception of the matter in hand by defining not the thing, diddling, in itself, but man as an animal that diddles. Had Plato but hit upon this, he would have been spared the affront of the picked chicken. Yet pertinently, it was a demand of Plato why he picked chicken, which was clearly a biped without feathers, was not, according to his own definition, a man. But I'm not to be bothered by any similar query. Man is an animal that diddles, and there is no animal that diddles but man. It will take an entire hen coop of picked chickens to get over that. What constitutes the essence, the nair, the principle of diddling is, in fact, peculiar to the class of creatures that wear coats and pantaloons. A crow thieves, a fox cheats, a weasel outwits, a man diddles. To diddle is his destiny. Man was made to mourn, says the poet, but not so. He was made to diddle. That is his aim, his object, his end. And for this reason, when a man's diddled, we say he's done. Diddling, rightly considered, is a compound of which the ingredients are minuteness, interest, perseverance, ingenuity, audacity, nonchalance, originality, impertinence, and grin. Minuteness. Your diddler is minute. His operations are upon a small scale. His business is retail for cash or approved paper at sight. Should he ever be tempted into magnificent speculation, he then at once loses his distinctive features and becomes what we term financier. This latter word conveys the diddling idea in every respect except that of magnitude. A diddler may thus be regarded as a banker in petto, a financial operation as a diddle in Brobdingnan. The one is to the other as Homer to Flassus, as a mastodon to a mouse, as the tail of a comet to that of a pig. Interest. Your diddler is guided by self-interest. He scorns to diddle for the mere sake of the diddle. He has an object in view, his pocket and yours. He regards always the main choice. He looks to number one. You are number two and must look to yourself. Perseverance. Your diddler perseveres. He's not readily discouraged. Should even the banks break, he cares nothing about it. He steadily pursues his end, and ut canis accorio nunquam absteri bidur unco. And so he lets go of his game. Ingenuity. Your diddler is ingenious. He has constructiveness large. He understands a plot. He invents and circumvents. Were he not Alexander, he would be Diogenes. Were he not a diddler, he would be a maker of patent rat traps or an angler for trout. Audacity. Your diddler is audacious. He is a bold man. He carries a war into Africa. He conquers all by assault. He would not fear the daggers of Frey Heron. With a little bit more prudence, Dick Turpin would have made a good diddler. With a trifle less blarney, Daniel O'Connell. With a pound or two more brains, Charles the 12th. Nonchalance. Your diddler is nonchalant. He is not at all nervous. He never had any nerves. He's never seduced into a flurry. He's never put out, unless put out of doors. He's cool, cool as a cucumber. He is calm, calm as a smile from Lady Bury. He is easy, easy as an old glove or the damsels of ancient Bayeux. Originality. Your diddler is original, conscientiously so. His thoughts are his own. He would scorn to employ those of another. A stale trick is his aversion. He would return a purse, I'm sure, upon discovering that he attained it by not an original, by an unoriginal diddle. Impertinence. Your diddler is impertinent. He swaggers, he sets his arms akimbo, he thrusts his hands into his trousers pockets. He sneers in your face. He treads on your corns. He eats your dinner. He drinks your wine. He borrows your money. He pulls your nose. He kicks your poodle. And he kisses your wife. Grin. Your true diddler winds up all with a grin. But this nobody sees but himself. He grins when his daily work is done, when his allotted labours are accomplished. At night, in his own closet and altogether for his own private entertainment. He goes home. He locks his door. He divests himself of his clothes. He puts out his candle. He gets into bed. He places his head upon the pillow. All this done, and your diddler grins. This is no hypothesis. It is a matter of course. I reason a priori, and a diddle would be no diddle without a grin. The origin of the diddle is referable to the infancy of the human race. Perhaps the first diddler was Adam. At all events, we can trace the science back to a very remote period of antiquity. The moderns, however, have brought it to a perfection never dreamed of by our thick-headed progenitors. Without pausing to speak of the old saws, therefore, I shall content myself with a compendious account of some of the more modern instances. A very good diddle is this. A housekeeper in want of a sofa, for instance, is seen to go in and out of several cabinet warehouses. At length she arrives at one offering an excellent variety. She is accosted and invited to enter by a polite and voluble individual at the door. She finds a sofa, well adapted to her views, and upon inquiring the price is surprised and delighted to hear some named at least 20%. 20% lower than her expectations. She hastens to make the purchase, gets a bill and receipt, leaves her address with a request that the article be sent home as speedily as possible, and retires amid a profusion of bows from the shopkeeper. The night arrives, and no sofa. The next day passes, and still none. A servant is sent to make inquiry about the delay. The whole transaction is denied. No sofa has been sold, no money received, except by the diddler who played shopkeeper for the nonce. Our cabinet warehouses are left entirely unattended and thus afford every facility for a trick of this kind. Visitors enter, look at furniture, and depart unheeded and unseen. Should anyone wish to purchase or to inquire the price of an article, a bell is at hand, and this is considered amply sufficient. Again, quite a respectable diddle is this. A well-dressed individual enters a shop, makes a purchase to the value of $1, finds, much to his vexation, that he has left his pocketbook in another coat pocket, and so says to the shopkeeper, "My dear sir, never mind, just oblige me, will you, by sending the bundle home? But stay, I really believe that I have nothing less than a $5 bill even there. However, you can send $4 in change with the bundle, you know." "Very good, sir," replies the shopkeeper, who entertains at once a lofty opinion of his high-mindedness of his customer. "I know fellows," he says to himself, "who would have just put the goods under their arm and walked off with the promise to call and pay the dollar as they came by in the afternoon." A boy is sent with the parcel and change. En route, quite accidentally, he is met by the purchaser who exclaims, "Ah, this is my bundle, I see. I thought you had been home with it long ago. Well, go on. My wife, Mrs. Trotter, will give you the $5. I left instructions with her to that effect. The change you might as well give to me. I shall want some silver for the post office." "Very good. 1, 2. Is this a good quarter?" 3, 4. Quite right. Say to Mrs. Trotter that you met me, and be sure now and do not loiter on the way." Now, the boy doesn't loiter at all, but he's a very long time in getting back from his errand, for no lady of the precise name of Mrs. Trotter is to be discovered. He consoled himself, however, he has not been such a fool as to leave the goods without the money, and re-entering his shop with a self-satisfied air, feels sensibly hurt and indignant when his master asks him what has become of the change. A very simple diddle indeed is this. The captain of a ship which is about to sail is presented by an official-looking person with an unusually moderate bill of city charges. Glad to get off so easily and confused by 100 duties pressing upon him all at once, he discharges the claim forthwith. In about 15 minutes, another and less reasonable bill is handed him by the one who makes it evident that the first collector was a diddler, and the original collection a diddle. And here too is a somewhat similar thing. A steamboat is casting loose from the wharf. A traveller, portmanteau in hand, is discovered running toward the wharf at full speed. Suddenly, he makes a dead halt, stoops, and picks up something from the ground in a very agitated manner. It is his pocket-book, and "Has any gentleman lost a pocket-book?" he cries. No one can say that he has exactly lost a pocket-book, but a great excitement ensues when the treasure trove is found to be of value. The boat, however, must not be detained. "Time and tide wait for no man," says the captain. "For God's sake, stay only a few minutes," says the finder of the book. "The true claimant will be presently appear." "Can't wait," replies the man in authority. "Cast off there, do you hear?" "What am I to do?" asks the finder in great tribulation. "I'm about to leave the country for some years, and I cannot conscientiously retain this large amount in my possession. I beg your pardon, sir." Here he addresses a gentleman on shore. "But you have the air of an honest man. Will you confer upon me the favour of taking charge of this pocket-book? I know I can trust you, and of advertising it. The notes, you see, amount to a very considerable sum. The owner will, no doubt, insist upon rewarding you for your trouble." "Me? No, 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 you. It was you who found the book." "Well, if you must have it so, I will take a small reward just to satisfy your scruples. Let me see. Why, these notes are all hundreds. Bless my soul, 100 is too much to take. 50 would be quite good enough, I'm sure." "Cast off there," says the captain. "But then I have no change for 100, and upon the whole, you'd better—" "Cast off there," says the captain. "Never mind," cries the gentleman on shore, who's been examining his own pocket-book for the last minute or so. "Never mind, I can fix it. Here's a 50 on the Bank of North America. Throw me the book." And the over-conscientious finder takes the 50 with marked reluctance, and throws the gentleman the book as desired, while the steamboat fumes and fizzes on her way. In about half an hour after her departure, the large amount is seen to be a counterfeit presentment, and the whole thing a capital diddle. A bold diddle is this: a camp meeting or something similar is to be held at a certain spot, which is accessible only by means of a free bridge. The diddle stations himself upon this bridge, respectfully informs all passers by of the new county law, which establishes a toll of 1 cent for foot passengers, 2 for horses and donkeys, and so on and so forth. Some grumble, but all submit, and the diddler goes home a wealthier man by some $50 or $60 well earned. This taking a toll from a great crowd of people is an excessively troublesome thing. A neat diddle is this: a friend holds one of the diddler's promises to pay, filled up and signed in due form upon the ordinary blanks printed in red ink. The diddler purchases 1 or 2 of these blanks, and every day dips one of them in his soup, makes his dog jump for it, and finally gives it to him as a bonne bouche. The note arriving at maturity, the diddler with the diddler's dog calls upon the friend, and the promise to pay is made the topic of discussion. The friend produces it from his escritoire, and is in the act of reaching it to the diddler, when up jumps the diddler's dog and devours it forthwith. The diddler is not only surprised but vexed and incensed at the absurd behaviour of his dog, and expresses his entire readiness to cancel the obligation at any moment when the evidence of the obligation shall be forthcoming. A very minute diddle is this. A lady is insulted in the street by a diddler's accomplice. The diddler himself flies to her assistance, and by giving his friend a comfortable thrashing, insists upon attending the lady to her own door. He bows, with his hand upon his heart, and most respectfully bids her adieu. She entreats him, as her deliverer, to walk in and be introduced to her big brother and her papa. With a sigh, he declines to do so. "Is there no way, then, sir," she murmurs, "in which may be permitted to testify my gratitude?" "Why, yes, madame, there is. Will you be kind enough to lend me a couple of shillings?" In the first excitement of the moment, the lady decides upon fainting outright. Upon second thought, however, she opens her purse strings and delivers the specie. Now this, I say, is a diddle minute, for one entire moiety of the sum borrowed has to be paid to the gentleman who had the trouble of performing the insult, and had then to stand still and be thrashed for performing it. Rather small, but still a scientific diddle is this. The diddler approaches the bar of a tavern and demands a couple of twists of tobacco. These are handed to him. When, having slightly examined them, he says, "Oh, I don't much like this tobacco. Here, take it back and give me a glass of brandy and water in its place." The brandy and the water is furnished and imbibed, and the diddler makes his way to the door. But the voice of the tavern keeper arrests him. "I believe, sir, you've forgotten to pay for your brandy and water." "Pay for my brandy and water? Why, didn't I give you the tobacco for the brandy and water? What more would you have?" "But, sir, if you please, I don't remember that you paid me for the tobacco." "What do you mean by that, scoundrel? Didn't I give you back your tobacco? Isn't that your tobacco lying there? Do you expect me to pay for what I did not take?" "But, sir," says the publican, now rather at a loss of what to say. But sir, but me no buts, sir," interrupts the diddler, apparently in a very high dudgeon, slamming the door after him as he makes his escape. "But me no buts, sir, and none of your tricks upon travellers." Here again is a very clever diddle, of which the simplicity is not its least recommendation. A purse, or pocket book, being really lost, the loser inserts in one of the daily newspapers of a large city a whole fully descriptive advertisement. Whereupon our diddler copies the facts of his advertisement with the changing of the heading of general phraseology and address. The original, for instance, is long and verbose, is headed "A Pocket Book Lost," and requires the treasure, and when found, to be left at number 1 Tom Street. The copy and brief is brief, and being headed with "Lost" only indicates number 2 Dick or number 3 Harry Street as the locality in which the owner may be seen. Moreover, it is inserted in at least 5 or 6 of the daily papers of the day, while in point of time it makes its appearance only a few hours after the original. Should it be read by the loser of the purse, he would hardly suspect it to have any reference to his own misfortune, but, of course, the chances are 5 to 6 to 1 that the finder will repair to the address given by the diddler rather than to the one appointed by the rightful proprietor. The former pays the reward, pockets the treasure, and decamps. Quite an analogous diddle is this. A lady of ton has dropped somewhere in the street a diamond ring of very unusual value. For its recovery, she offers some $40 or $50 reward, giving, in her advertisement, a very minute description of the gem and of its settings, and declaring that on its restoration at number so and so in such and such an avenue, the reward will be paid instanté without a single question being asked. During the lady's absence from home, a day or two afterwards, a ring is heard at the door of number so and in such and such an avenue. A servant appears, the lady of the house is asked for and is declared to be out, at which astounding information the visitor expresses the most poignant regret. His business is of importance and concerns the lady herself. In fact, he had the good fortune to find her diamond ring, but perhaps it would be as well that she should call again. "By no means," says the servant, and "by no means," says the lady's sister and the lady's sister-in-law, who are summoned forthwith. The ring is clamorously identified, the reward is paid, and the finder nearly thrust out of doors. The lady returns and expresses some little dissatisfaction with her sister and sister-in-law because they happened to have paid $40 or $50 for a facsimile of her diamond ring, a facsimile made out of a real pinchbeck and unquestionably paste. But as there really is no end to diddling, so there will be none to this essay were I even to hint at half variations or inflections of which this science is susceptible. I must bring this paper perforce to a conclusion, and this I cannot do better than by a summary notice of a very decent but rather elaborate diddle of which our own city has made a theatre, not very long ago, and which was subsequently repeated with success in other still more verdant localities of the Union. A middle-aged man, a middle-aged gentleman arrives in town from various parts unknown. He is remarkably precise, cautious, staid, and deliberate in his demeanour. His dress is scrupulously neat but plain, unostentatious. He wears a white cravat, an ample waistcoat made with an eye to comfort alone, thick-soled, cosy-looking shoes, and pantaloons without straps. He has lost the air, in fact, of a well-to-do, sober-sided, exact, and respectable man of business par excellence, one of the stern and outwardly hard, internally soft sort of people that we see in the crack high comedies, fellows whose words are so many bonds, and who are noted for giving away guineas in charity with one hand, and while in the way of mere bargain, they exact the uttermost fraction of a farthing with the other. He makes much ado before he can get suited with a boarding house. He dislikes children. He's been accustomed to quiet. His habits are methodical, and they would prefer getting into a private and respectable small family, piously inclined. Terms, however, are no object. Only he must insist upon settling his bill on the first of every month. It is now the second, and he begs his landlady, when he finally obtains one to his mind, not on any account to forget his instructions upon this point, but to send in a bill and a receipt precisely at 10 o'clock on the first day of every month, and under no circumstances to put it off to the second. These arrangements made, our man of business rents an office in a reputable rather than a fashionable quarter of town. There is nothing more he despises than pretense. Where there is much show, he says, there is seldom anything very solid behind. An observation which so profoundly impresses his landlady's fancy that she makes a pencil memorandum of it forthwith in her great family Bible on the broad margin of the Proverbs of Solomon. The next step is to advertise, after some such fashion as this, in the principal business sixpennies of the city. The pennies are eschewed as not respectable, and as demanding payment for all advertisements in advance. Our man of business holds it as a point of his faith that work can never be paid until done. Wanted, the advertisers, being wont to commence extensive business operations in the city, will require the services of 3 or 4 intelligent and competent clerks to whom a liberal salary will be paid. The very best recommendations, not so much for the capacity as for integrity, will be expected. Indeed, as the duties to be performed involve high responsibilities and large amounts of money must necessarily pass through the hands of those engaged, it is deemed advisable to demand a deposit of $50 from each clerk employed. No person need apply, therefore, who is not prepared to leave this sum in the possession of the advertisers, who cannot furnish the most satisfactory testimonials of morality. Young gentlemen piously inclined will be preferred. Application should be made between the hours of 10 and 11 a.m. and 4 and 5 p.m. of Messrs. Boggs, Hogs, Logs, Frogs and Company, number 110, Dog Street. By the 31st day of the month, this advertisement is brought to the office of Messrs. Boggs, Hogs, Logs, Frogs and Company some 15 or 20 young gentlemen piously inclined. But our man of business is in no hurry to conclude a contract with any. No man of business is ever precipitate, and it is not until the most rigid catechism in respect to the piety of each young gentleman's inclination that his services are engaged and his $50 receipted for, just by way of proper precaution on the part of the respectable firm of Boggs, Hogs, Logs, Frogs and Company. On the morning of the first day of the next month, the landlady does not present a bill according to promise, a piece of neglect for which the comfortable head of the house, ending in Oggs, would no doubt have chided her severely, could he have been prevailed upon to remain in town a day or two for that purpose. As it is, the constables have had a sad time of it, running hither and thither, and all they can do is to declare the man of business most emphatically a hen knee high, by which some persons imagine them to imply, in fact, that he is NEI, which again, by which again the very classical phrase non est inventus is supposed to be understood. In the meantime, the young gentlemen, one and all, are somewhat less piously inclined than before, while the landlady purchases a shilling's worth of the best Indian rubber and carefully obliterates the pencil memorandum that some fool has made in her great family Bible on the broad margin of the Proverbs of Solomon. Chazante, fair isle, that from the fairest of all flowers thy gentlest of all gentle names dost take. How many memories of what radiant hours at sight of thee and thine at once awake! How many scenes of what departed bliss! How many thoughts of what entombed hopes! How many visions of a maiden that is no more, no more upon thy verdant slopes! No more, alas, that magical sad sound transforming all. Thy charms shall please no more, thy memory no more. The cursed ground, henceforth I hold thy flower enamelled shore. O hyacinthine isle, O purple Zante, Isola d'oro, fior di Levante. Eulalia. I dwelt alone in a world of moan. My soul was a stagnant tide, till the fair and gentle Eulalia became my blushing bride. Till the yellow-haired young Eulalia became my smiling bride. Ah, less bright the stars of night than the eyes of the radiant girl, and never a flake that the vapour can make with the moon tints of purple and pearl can vie with the modest Eulalia's most unregarded curl, can compare with the bright-eyed Eulalia's most humble and querulous curl. No doubt, no pain come never again, for her soul gives me sigh for sigh, and all day long shines bright and strong as Astarte within the sky. While ever to be her dear Eulalie upturns her matron eye, while ever to her young Eulalie upturns her violet eye. All right, we're Poed. Thank you, Vansilart. All right, here's the deal. Here's the deal, gang. We've got hopefully a busy week coming up. I need to work out with Ryumi and maybe some other mods, but we're going to be doing 2 soup streams this week. And that's what we're going to be doing. And you missed it. Well, it's going to be on VOD, and I've got to work out how to put chat up on here as well. We poed out, yeah. We powed out 2 soups, yeah, because we didn't cook last weekend. So we're going to do 2 soups this week, just to keep it on track. We've got to keep it, What are we, 12 or 52 now? Hoping to join the soup venture again. Yeah. We came, we saw, we poed. That's it. We poed. We powed out. I like that though. We pow out with grace. Hello again, Ink and Whistles. This ruled. Thank you. So I gotta try and find a copy of some Sherlock Holmes, I think, this week. And we're probably gonna mix it up a little bit more, I think. What the blazes? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? What happened there? Oh, the battery's out. Really? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Interpretive dance next. Yeah, I'm not sure which one I plugged in last time, so I may have just had the wrong one charging. But there we are now. That's fine. We're going to finish anyway. Very crisp. Why does it say headphones? That's most bizarre. Yeah, whatever. Sign language stream. Good evening, all. I knew it. Oh, Leo Von Air, Von Noir. We're just finishing up. But we'll be reading some more. So it was either Sherlock Holmes, some of the horror, which I keep forgetting the name of the bloody horror thing. Why did I forget that? Yeah, the L word. L word. All right, gang. Is anybody who out there who we can raid? Easter Sunday, maybe not, I suppose. Who else is out that we can raid? No one. That's it. Nobody. In which case, all I need to say is thank you to everybody who Dreadwolf is streaming. I don't know who Dreadwolf is. Congratulations on 1,333. That's a good number, isn't it? That's a great number. I'm going to do old school like that because I'm a. What am I saying? I've got words in my head. Huddle diddle week chat. So this week, Tuesday, all things being well, I'm going to be streaming with Mark Cram again. We're going to be getting our fingers in the soil. He's got a bunch of tomatoes that need potting out. And we're going to get two soups going. Wednesday night, we're going to be reading. Moist seed time. Yeah, a lot of seeds have come up, by the way. It's most exciting. And then we're going to be hanging out with Logan a bit. And we're also going to be, the plan is, I said we'll get Kingdom Come going in March, but at some point soon as possible. But I need to get the computer sorted, and that takes time and money. We will either with Logan, we'll probably at Logan start playing KCD so I can get an idea of what it's all about, and then we'll be following that on. Pet the snakes now that they've materialized. Yeah, harvest stream later in the year. We will indeed. All right, gang. What I should say is thank you so much to all Miss Effect, Alison, Ziggy Wiggy, Nearlaw, Fucked Up Cat, Babushter, Dank Schneck for the subs and so on. And all the cheers from y'all, Magusa, Babushter, Barbarian, and who else? Jade, isn't it? Yeah. For Austin to everybody. And eat some chocolate and shit and hope bunnies don't come and bite your ass. And that was a bit random. And drink beer if you like. Or don't drink beer if you don't like. But, oh, someone coming in the room. All right, chat. I'm going to have to... I'm going to have to finish now.